Some time ago there was a rich old codger who lived in Oxford and who took a lodger. The fellow was a carpenter by trade, his lodger a poor student who'd made some studies in the arts. But all his fancy turned to astrology and geomancy, and he could deal with certain propositions, make a forecast under some conditions about the likelihood of droughts or showers for those who asked at favourable hours, or put a question how their luck would fall in this or that. We can't describe them all. The lad was known as Nicholas the Gallant, and making love in secret was his talent. For he was very close and sly, and took advantage of his meek and girlish look. He rented a small chamber in the Kip all by himself without companionship. He decked it charmingly with herbs and fruit, and he himself was sweeter than the root of licorice or any fragrant herb. His astronomic textbooks were superb. He had an astrolabe to match his art, and calculating counters laid apart on handy shelves that stood above his bed. His press was curtained coarsely and in red. About there lay a gallant harp in sight, on which he played melodiously at night, with such a touch that all the chamber rang. It was the Virgin's Angelus he sang, and after that he sang King William's note, and people often blessed his merry throat. And that was how this charming scholar spent his time and money which his friends had sent. This carpenter had married a new wife not long before, and loved her more than life. She was a girl of 18 years of age. Jealous he was, and kept her in a cage, for he was old and she was wild and young. He thought himself quite likely to be stung. He might have known were Cato on his shelf. A man should marry someone like himself. A man should pick an equal for his mate. Youth and old age are often in debate. However, he had fallen in the snare and had to bear his cross as others bear. She was a fair young wife, her body as slender as any weasel's, and as soft and tender. She used to wear a girdle of striped silk. Her apron was as white as morning milk over her loins, all gusseted and pleated. White was her smock. Embroidery repeated its pattern on the collar, front and back, inside and out. It was of silk and black. The tapes and ribbons of her milky mutch were made to match her collar to a touch. She wore a broad silk fillet rather high, and certainly she had a lecherous eye, and she had plucked her eyebrows into bows. Slenderly arched they were, and black as sloes, and a more truly blissful sight to see she was than blossom on a cherry tree, and softer than the wool upon a wether. And by her girdle hung a purse of leather, tasselled with silk and silver droplets, pearled. If you went seeking up and down the world, the wisest man you met would have to drench his fancy to imagine such a wench. And her complexion had a brighter tint than a new florin from the Royal Mint. As to her song, it was as loud and quick as any swallow's chirping on a rick, and she would skip or play some game or other like any kid or calf behind its mother. Her mouth was sweet as mead or honey, say a hoard of apples lying in the hay. Skittish she was, as jolly as a colt, tall as a mast and upright as a bolt out of a bow. Her collarette revealed a brooch as big as boss upon a shield. High shoes she wore, and laced them to the top. She was a daisy, a lollipop for any nobleman to take to bed, or some good man of yeoman stock to wed. Now, gentlemen, this gallant Nicholas one day began to romp and make a pass at this young woman in a mood of play, her husband being out down Osney way. Students are sly, and giving way to whim, he made a grab and caught her by the quim, and said, "Unless I have my will of you, I'll die of secret love. Oh, darling, do!" Then held her haunches hard, and gave a cry, "Oh, love me all at once, or I shall die." She gave a spring, just like a skittish colt, boxed in a frame for shoeing, and with a jolt managed in time to wrench her head away, and said, "Give over, Nicholas, I say. No, I won't kiss you. Stop it. Let me go, or I shall scream. I'll let the neighbours know. Where are your manners? Take away your paws." Then Nicholas began to plead his cause, and spoke so fair in proffering what he could, that in the end she promised him she would, swearing she'd love him, with a solemn promise to be at his disposal by St. Thomas, when she could spy an opportunity. "My husband is so full of jealousy. Unless you watch your step and hold your breath, I know for certain it will be my death," she said. "So keep it well under your hat." "Oh, never mind about a thing like that," said he. "A scholar doesn't have to stir his wits so much to trick a carpenter." And so they both agreed to it, and swore to watch their chance. As I've said before, when things were settled thus as they thought fit, and Nicholas had stroked her loins a bit and kissed her sweetly, he took down his harp and played away a merry tune and sharp. It happened later she went off to church, this worthy wife, one holiday, to search her conscience and to do the works of Christ. She put her work aside, and she enticed the colour to her face to make her mark. Her forehead shone. There was a parish clerk serving the church, whose name was Absalom. His hair was all in golden curls and shone. Just like a fan it strutted outwards, starting to left and right from an accomplished parting. Ruddy his face, his eyes as grey as goose, his shoes cut out in tracery, as in use in old St. Paul's. The hose upon his feet showed scarlet through, and all his clothes were neat and proper. In a jacket of light blue, flounced at the waist and tagged with laces too, he went, and wore a surplice just as gay and white as any blossom on the spray. God bless my soul, he was a merry knave. He knew how to let blood, cut hair and shave, and draw up legal deeds. At other whiles he used to dance in 20 different styles, after the current school at Oxford, though, casting his legs about him to and fro. He played a 2-stringed fiddle, did it proud, and sang a high falsetto rather loud, and he was just as good on the guitar. There was no public house in town or bar he didn't visit with his merry face, if there were saucy barmaids round the place. He was a little squeamish in the matter of farting, and satirical in chatter. This Absalom, so jolly in his ways, would bear the censer round on holy days and cense the parish women. He would cast many a lovelorn look before he passed, especially at this carpenter's young wife. Looking at her would make a happy life. She was so neat, so sweet, so lecherous. And I dare say, if she had been a mouse and he a cat, she'd have been pounced upon. In taking the collection, Absalom would find his heart was set in such a whirl of love, he would take nothing from a girl. For courtesy, he said, it wasn't right. That evening, when the moon was shining bright, he ups with his guitar, and off he tours, on the lookout for any paramours. Larky and amorous, away he strode until he reached the carpenter's abode a little after cock-crow, took his stand beside the casement window close at hand. It was set low upon the cottage face, and started singing softly and with grace. "Now, lady, if thy pleasure be in thoughts of love, think tenderly of me." On his guitar he plucked a tuneful string. This carpenter awoke and heard him sing, and turning to his wife said, "Alison, wife, do you hear him? There goes Absalom chanting away under our chamber wall." And she, "Yes, John, God knows I hear it all." If she thought more of it, she didn't tell. So things went on. What's better than all's well? From day to day this jolly Absalom, wooing away, became quite woebegone. He lay awake all night and all the day, combing his thick locks, and tried to pass for gay. Wooed her by go-between, and wooed by proxy. Swore to be page and servant to his doxy. Trilled and roulated like a nightingale. Sent her sweet wine and mead and spicy ale, and wafers piping hot and jars of honey. And as she lived in town he offered money. For there are some a money bag provokes, and some are won by kindness, some by strokes. Once, in the hope his talent might engage, he played the part of Herod on the stage. What was the good? Were he as bold as brass? She was in love with gallant Nicholas. However Absalom might blow his horn, his labour won him nothing but her scorn. She looked upon him as her private ape, and held his earnest wooing all a jape. There is a proverb, true as you may find, that out of sight is also out of mind. For nigh and sly has the advantage there. And much as Absalom might tear his hair and rage at being seldom in her sight, Nicholas, nigh and sly, stood in his light. Now show your paces, Nicholas, you spark, and leave lamenting to the parish clerk. And so it happened that one Saturday, when the old carpenter was safe away at Osney, Nicholas and Alison agreed at last in what was to be done. Nicholas was to exercise his wits on her suspicious husband's foolish fits, and if so be the trick worked out all right, she then would sleep with Nicholas all night. For such was his desire, and hers as well, and even quicker than it takes to tell, young Nicholas, who simply couldn't wait, went to his room on tiptoe with a plate of food and drink enough to last a day or two, and Alison was told to say, in case her husband asked for Nicholas, that she had no idea where he was, and that she hadn't set eyes on him all day, and thought he must be ill, she couldn't say. And more than once the maid had given a call and shouted, but no answer came at all. So it continued all that Saturday without a sound from Nicholas, who lay upstairs and ate or slept as pleased him best, till Sunday, when the sun went down to rest. This foolish carpenter was lost in wonder at Nicholas. What could have got him under? He said, "I can't help thinking, by the mass, things can't be going right with Nicholas. What if he took and died? God guard his ways. A ticklish place the world is nowadays. I saw a corpse this morning borne to kirk that only Monday last I saw at work. Run up," he told the serving lad. "Be quick, shout at his door or knock it with a brick. Take a good look and tell me how he fares." The serving boy went sturdily upstairs, stopped at the door, and standing there, the lad shouted away and hammering like mad cried, "Ho! What's up? Hi! Master Nicolay! How can you lie up there asleep all day?" But all for naught. He didn't hear a soul. He found a broken panel with a hole right at the bottom, useful to the cat for creeping in by. So he looked through that, and in the end he saw him through the crack. This Nicholas lay gaping on his back, as if he'd caught a glimpse of the new moon. Down went the boy and told his master soon about the state in which he'd found the man. On hearing this, the carpenter began to cross himself and said, "St. Fried's wide bless us, we little know what's coming to distress us. The man has fallen with this here astromy, into a fit or lunacy maybe. I always thought that was how it would go. God has some secrets that we shouldn't know." How blessed are the simple! Ay, indeed, that only know enough to say their creed. Happened just so with such another student of astronomy, and he was so imprudent as to stare upwards while he crossed a field, busy foreseeing what the stars revealed. And what should happen but he fell down flat into a marl pit. He didn't foresee that. But by the saints, we've reached a sorry pass. I can't help worrying for Nicholas. He shall be scolded for his studying if I know how to scold, by Christ the King. Get me a staff to prise against the floor. Robin, you put your shoulder to the door. We'll shake the study out of him, I guess. The pair of them began to even press against the door. Happen the lad was strong, and so it didn't take them long to heave it off its hinges. Down it came. Still as a stone lay Nicholas, with the same expression, gaping upwards into air. The carpenter supposed it was despair, and caught him by the shoulders mightily, shook him, and shouted with asperity, "What, Nicholas? Hey! Look down! Is that a fashion to act? Wake up and think upon Christ's passion. I sign you with a cross from elves and sprites." And he began the spell for use at nights in all four corners of the room, and out across the threshold too, and round about. Jesu Christ and Benedict sainted, bless this house from creature tainted. Drive away night hags, white paternoster. Where did you go, St. Peter's Soster? And in the end, the dandy Nicholas began to sigh. "And must it come to pass," he said, "must all the world be cast away?" The carpenter replied, "What's that you say? Put trust in God as we do, working men." Nicholas answered, "Fetch some liquor then, and afterwards in strictest secrecy I'll speak of something touching you and me, but not another soul must know, that's plain." This carpenter went down and came again, bringing some powerful ale, a largish quart. When each had had his share of this support, young Nicholas got up and shut the door, and sitting down beside him on the floor, said to the carpenter, "Now, John, my dear, my excellent host, swear on your honour here not to repeat a syllable I say, for here are Christ's intentions, to betray which to a soul puts you among the lost, and vengeance for it at a bitter cost shall fall upon you. You'll be driven mad." "Christ and his holy blood forbid it, lad," the silly fellow answered. "I'm no blab, though I should say it. I'm not given to gab. Say what you like, for I shall never tell man, woman, or child by him that harrowed hell." "Now, John," said Nicholas, "believe you me, I have found out by my astrology, and looking at the moon when it was bright, that Monday next, a quarter way through night, rain is to fall in torrents. Such a scud it will be twice as bad as Noah's flood. This world," he said, "in just about an hour shall all be drowned. It's such a hideous shower, and all mankind, with total loss of life." The carpenter exclaimed, "Alas, my wife, my little Alison, is she to drown?" And in his grief he very near fell down. "Is there no remedy," he said, "for this?" "Thanks be to God," said Nicholas, "there is, if you will do exactly what I say and don't start thinking up some other way. In wise old Solomon you'll find the verse, 'Who takes advice shall never fare the worse.' And so if good advice is to prevail, I undertake with neither mast nor sail to save her yet, and saved myself and you. Haven't you heard how Noah was saved too, when God forewarned him and his sons and daughters that all the world should sink beneath the waters?" "Yes," said the carpenter, "a long time back." "Haven't you heard," said Nicholas, "what a black business it was, when Noah tried to whip his wife who wouldn't come on board the ship? He'd have been better pleased, I'll undertake, with all that weather just about to break, if she had had a vessel of her own. Now what are we to do?" We can't postpone the thing, it's coming soon, as I was saying. It calls for haste, not preaching or delaying. I want you now, at once, to hurry off and fetch a shallow tub or kneading trough for each of us. But see that they are large, and such as we can float in, like a barge, and have them loaded with sufficient victual to last a day. We only need a little. The waters will abate and flow away round 9 o'clock upon the following day. Robin the lad mayn't know of this, poor knave, nor Jill the maid. Those two I cannot save. Don't ask me why, and even if you do, I can't disclose God's secret thoughts to you. You should be satisfied, unless you're mad, to find as great a grace as Noah had, and I shall save your wife, you needn't doubt it. Now, off you go, and hurry up about it. And when the tubs have been collected, 3, that's one for her and for yourself and me, then hang them in the roof below the thatching, that no one may discover what we're hatching. When you have finished doing what I said, and stowed the victuals in them overhead, also an axe to hack the ropes apart, so when the water rises we can start. And lastly, when you've broken out the gable, the garden one that's just above the stable, so that we may cast free without delay after the mighty shower has gone away, you'll float as merrily, I undertake, as any lily-white duck behind her drake. And I'll call out, "Hey, Alison, hey, John, cheer yourselves up, the flood will soon be gone." And you'll shout back, "Hail, Master Nicolay, good morning, I can see you well, it's day." We shall be lords for all the rest of life of all the world, like Noah and his wife. One thing I warn you of, it's only right, we must be very careful on the night, once we have safely managed to embark, to hold our tongues, to utter no remark, no cry or call, for we must fall to prayer. This is the Lord's dear will, so have a care. Your wife and you must hang some way apart, for there must be no sin before we start, no more in longing looks than in the deed. Those are your orders. Off with you, Godspeed. Tomorrow night, when everyone's asleep, we'll all go quietly upstairs and creep into our tubs, awaiting heaven's grace. And now be off. No time to put the case at greater length, no time to sermonize. The proverb says, "Say nothing, send the wise." You're wise enough, I do not have to teach you. Go, save our lives for us, as I beseech you. This silly carpenter then went his way, muttering to himself, "Alas, the day," and told his wife in strictest secrecy. She was aware far more indeed than he what this strange stratagem might have in sight, but she pretended to be dead with fright. "Alas," she said, "whatever it may cost, hurry and help, or we shall all be lost. I am your honest, true and wedded wife. Go, dearest husband, help to save my life." How fancy throws us into perturbation. People can die of mere imagination, so deep is the impression one can take. This silly carpenter began to quake. Before his eyes there verily seemed to be the floods of Noah, wallowing like the sea and drowning Alice and his honey pet. He wept and wailed, his features were all set in grief, he sighed with many a doleful grunt. He went and got a tub, began to hunt for kneading troughs, found 2, and had them sent home to his house in secret. Then he went and unbeknowns he hung them from a rafter. With his own hands he made 3 ladders after, uprights and rungs, to help them in their scheme of climbing where they hung upon the beam. He victualled tub and trough, and made all snug with bread and cheese, and ale in a large jug, enough for 3 of them to last the day. And just before completing this array, packed off the maid and his apprentice to London on a job they had to do. And on the Monday, when it drew to night, he shut his door and doused the candle light, and made quite sure all was as it should be. And shortly up they clambered, all the 3, silent and separate. They began to pray, and "Pater noster, Mum," said Nicolay, and "Mum," said John, and "Mum," said Alison. The carpenter's devotions being done, he sat quite still, then fell to prayer again, with one ear rocked, however, for the rain. The carpenter, with all the work he'd seen, fell dead asleep. Round curfew must have been, maybe a little later on the whole. He groaned in sleep for travail of his soul, and snored because his head was turned awry. Down by their ladders, stalking from on high, came Nicholas and Alison, and sped softly downstairs without a word to bed. And where the carpenter was wont to be, the revels started and the melody. And thus lay Nicholas and Alison busy in solace and the quest of fun, until the bell for Lords had started ringing, and in the chancel friars began their singing. This parish clerk, this amorous Absalom, love-stricken still and very woe-begone, upon the Monday was in company at Osney with his friends for jollity, and chanced to ask a resident cloisterer what had become of John the carpenter. The fellow drew him out of church to say, "Don't know, not been at work since Saturday. I can't say where he is. I think he went to fetch the abbot timber. He is sent often enough for timber, asked to go out to the Grange and stop a day or so. If not, he's certainly at home today, but where he is I can't exactly say." Absalom was a jolly lad and light of heart. He thought, "I'll stay awake tonight. I'm certain that I haven't seen him stirring about his door since dawn. It's safe inferring that he's away. As I'm alive, I'll go and tap his window softly at the crow of cock. The sill is low set on the wall. I shall see Alison and tell her all my love-longing, and I can hardly miss some favour from her, at the least a kiss. I'll get some satisfaction anyway. There's been an itching in my mouth all day, and that's a sign of kissing at the least. And all last night I dreamt about a feast. I think I'll go and sleep an hour or two, then wake and have some fun. That's what I'll do." The first cock crew at last, and thereupon uprose this jolly lover Absalom in gayest clothes, garnished with that and this. But first he chewed a grain of licorice to charm his breath before he combed his hair. Under his tongue the comfit nestling there would make him gracious. He began to roam towards the carpenters. He reached their home, and by the casement window took his stand. Breast high it stood, no higher than his hand. He gave a cough. It was a semi-sound. "Alison, honeycomb, are you around? Sweet cinnamon, my little pretty bird. Sweetheart, wake up and say a little word. You seldom think of me in all my woe. I sweat for love of you wherever I go. No wonder if I do. I pine and bleat as any lambkin hungering for the teat. Believe me, darling, I'm so deep in love I croon with longing like a turtle dove. I eat as little as a girl at school." "You go away," she answered, "you tomfool. There's no come up and kiss me here for you. I love another, and why shouldn't I too? Better than you, by Jesu, Absalom. Take yourself off, or I shall throw a stone. I want to get some sleep. You go to hell." "Alas," said Absalom, "I knew it well. True love is always mocked and girded at. So kiss me if you can't do more than that, for Jesu's love and for the love of me." "And if I do, will you be off?" said she. "Promise you, darling," answered Absalom. "Get ready then. Wait, I'll put something on," she said. And then she added under breath to Nicholas, "Hush, we shall laugh to death." This Absalom went down upon his knees. "I am a lord," he thought, "and by degrees there may be more to come. The plot may thicken." "Mercy, my love," he said. "Your mouth, my chicken." She flung the window open then in haste and said, Have done. Come on, no time to waste. The neighbours here are always on the spy. Absalom started wiping his mouth dry. Dark was the night as pitch, as black as coal, and at the window out she put her hole. And Absalom, so fortune framed the farce, put up his mouth and kissed her naked arse most savourously before he knew of this. And back he started. Something was amiss. He knew quite well a woman has no beard, yet something rough and airy had appeared. What have I done? He said. Can that be you? Tee-hee, she cried, and clapped the window to. Off went poor Absalom sadly through the dark. A beard, cried Nicholas the Spark. God's body, that was something like a joke. And Absalom, overhearing what he spoke, bit on his lips and nearly threw a fit in rage, and thought, I'll pay you back for it. Who's busy rubbing, scraping at his lips with dust, with sand, with straw, with cloth, with chips, but Absalom? He thought, I'll bring him down. I wouldn't let this go for all the town. I'd take my soul and sell it to the devil to be revenged upon him. I'll get level. Oh God, why did I let myself be fooled? The fiery heat of love by now had cooled. But from that time he kissed her hinder parts, he didn't give a tinker's curse for tarts. His malady was cured by this endeavour, and he defied all paramours whatever. So, weeping like a child that has been whipped, he turned away. Across the road he slipped and called on Gervase. Gervase was a smith. His forge was full of things for ploughing with, and he was busy sharpening a share. Absalom knocked, and with an easy air called, Gervase, open up the door, come on. What's that? Who's there? It's me, it's Absalom. What, Absalom? By Jesus, blessed tree, you're early up. Hey, Benny Dicey, what's wrong? Some jolly girl as like as not has coaxed you out and set you on the trot. Blessed St. Neot, you know the thing I mean. But Absalom, who didn't give a bean for all his joking, offered no debate. He had a good deal more upon his plate than Gervase knew, and said, would it be fair to borrow that coulter in the chimney there? The hot one, see it? I've a job to do. It won't take long, I'll bring it back to you. Gervase replied, why, if you asked for gold, a bag of sovereigns or of wealth untold, it should be yours, as I'm an honest smith. But Christ, why borrow that to do it with? Let that, said Absalom, be as it may. You'll hear about it all some other day. He caught the coulter up, the haft was cool, and left the smithy softly with the tool, crept to the little window in the wall and coughed. He knocked and gave a little call under the window as he had before. Alison said, there's someone at the door. Who's knocking there? I'll warrant it's a thief. Why no, said he, my little flower leaf. It's your own Absalom, my sweetie thing. Look what I've brought you. It's a golden ring my mother gave me, as I may be saved. It's very fine and prettily engraved. I'll give it to you, darling, for a kiss. Now, Nicholas had risen for a piss, and thought he would improve upon the jape and make him kiss his arse ere he escape, and opening the window with a jerk, stuck out his arse, a handsome piece of work, buttocks and all as far as to the haunch. Said Absalom, all set to make a launch. Speak, my pretty bird, I know not where thou art. This Nicholas at once let fly a fart as loud as if it were a thunderclap, and he was near blinded by the blast, poor chap. But his hot iron was ready with a thump. He smote him in the middle of the rump. Off went the skin a hand's breadth round about, where the hot coulter struck and burnt it out. Such was the pain he thought he must be dying, and mad with agony he started crying, Help! Water, water, help, for heaven's love! The carpenter, startled from sleep above, and hearing shouts for water, and a third thought, "Heaven help us, here comes Noel's flood." And up he sat, and with no more ado he took his axe and smote the ropes in two, and down went everything. He didn't stop to sell his bread and ale, but came down flop upon the floor and fainted right away. Up started Alison and Nicolay and shouted, "Help!" and "Murder in the street!" The neighbours all came running up in heat and stood there staring at the wretched man. He lay there fainting, pale beneath his tan. His arm in falling had been broken double, but still he was obliged to face his trouble, for when he spoke he was at once borne down by Nicholas and his wife. They told the town that he was mad. They got into his blood some sort of nonsense about Noel's flood, that vain imaginings and fantasy had made him buy the kneading tubs, that he had hung them in the rafters up above, and that he'd begged them both, for heaven's love, to sit up in the roof for company. All started laughing at this lunacy, and streamed upstairs to gape and pry and poke, and treated all his sufferings as a joke. No matter what the carpenter asserted, it went for nothing. No one was converted. With powerful oaths they swore the fellow down, and he was held for mad by all the town. The students all ganged up with one another, saying, "The fellow's crazy, my dear brother," and every one among them laughed and joked, and so the carpenter's wife was truly poked, as if his jealousy to justify, and Absalom had kissed her nether eye, and Nicholas is branded on the bum, and God bring all of us to kingdom come.